We have moved across to the Legumes on Sands site. This is a trial that has been funded by the Murray Lands and Riverland Landscapes Board, and we've got Sam Trengove here from Trengove Consulting, who has got lots of experience working with legumes and sandy soils in the Northern Yorke region and mid-north, and he'll be filling in for Michael today and giving us his wisdom on how to grow legumes better on sandy soils. And then we'll also throw over to Jeremy to talk a little bit about, Jeremy's over there, to talk a little bit about ground cover, because this site did get some erosion after it was sown. So this is a second year trial for us. Some of you might have seen the first year over at Robert Pocock's last year. And the trial is really looking at can we improve legume production on sands with improved nutrition? And we did a whole pile of different things, put more nitrogen out, more phosphorus, trace elements, and nothing seemed to improve legume production on sands as good as the deep ripping effect. So that comes with challenges in itself, but that's pretty much what we're looking at here today. And I'll stop talking and hand over to Sam. So,
okay, so thanks for having me. So this is a site that Michael set up with a NRM project, but it also ties in with some larger project work going on with GRDC Sandy Soils project in the southern region, which I'm involved with in that sort of northern and York area. So I guess in our home patch I'm dealing more with red sands in the dune swale system there in the Northern Yorke Peninsula, and those sands tend to be a bit more gradational than some of the pits that I've dug here, where we don't have sort of the duplex nature of the sand over clay. But we're seeing some similar responses to what we're seeing at this site here. So it's a cracking trial. So there's a range of different legumes here. We've got lentils, chickpeas, lupins, fava beans, vetch, field peas, and then a mix of vetch and canola and peas and canola. So by way of results last year, there were some big responses to ripping, where for a couple of the legume species they basically doubled their yields. Lentils went from a pretty low starting base of about 100 kilos per hectare to about 300, but the field peas went from about half a tonne up to 1 tonne per hectare. The vetch went from about 700 kilos up to 1.1, and so there's some pretty big gains to be made there. Those responses I'd suggest are showing up again here at this site today. So if you sort of wander down, you'd start to pick them out pretty visually. Just to get your eye on this plot here on my left is the untreated control. So this hasn't had any amelioration done to it. Here on my right is a straight spading treatment. So just for my benefit, how many of you sort of started implementing some sort of soil amelioration? Who's been doing some deep ripping or of some description? A couple of hands. Anyone doing any spading? A few hands. The 4 treatments that are replicated across all the different legumes are an untreated. We've got a straight spading treatment, which is that one on my right. This one here is just a straight deep rip. And then the last treatment there that I've dug a hole in front of is a combination of deep ripping and spading. We're still seeing some big responses to the treatment. So this plot here is just a straight deep rip. The next plot there is spading, and then the plot behind Tanya there is a deep rip and spade. While we're seeing these fairly significant above ground responses, like I reckon if we did some dry matter cuts on these, we'd nearly have twice the dry matter on the deep rip plot here to my left. It's actually quite hard to visualise it in terms of a big root growth response. So here on the untreated, I could only really find roots going down to 20 centimetres at most, and most of them are sort of 15 centimetres or less. There's not a huge increase in root growth on the deep rip, but there must be some getting down there to be driving that response. I couldn't really find them. And the deep rip and spade, I mean, you see that normal spading effect where it's grabbed some of that higher organic matter topsoil and dragged it down, and you can see the sort of spade patterns in the profile, and there's tends to be more root growth in those spading grabs, but still not seeing roots popping out at 40, 50 centimetres like we did in that clay.
Interest in the project as partners is managing soil erosion risk. And of course we know that some of the soil amelioration treatments there sort of really do expose us to some soil drift risk, and we know what this district can be like for harsh winds, and we certainly had some earlier on in the season. But I gave you a bit of a handout, most of you would have one. It just really captures the emergence and now sort of look of the site. And we can see probably some fairly predictable sort of trends there, but as Sam mentioned, there are some edge effects up here which sort of have marred probably some of the plots, so you just have to bear that in mind, that as plots they'll have those effects in them. The lupins, we found, similar to what Sam was saying, that the actual act there of bringing up the subsoil has changed the pH back to about 7, and also dragged up a bit of salt with it as well, so it's probably compounded a bit of the issue with the lupin emergence there. Apart from that, it's probably not worth me saying a whole heap more, but have a look through the trial itself, and yeah, have a look at the ground cover levels that we've achieved. As I said, our interest is really just judging biomass generation, so we'll continue to monitor the site beyond the crop phase. That's the intention, to see what sort of residual ground cover there is post the harvest, and then that will allow us to develop basically, I guess, a bit like a performance summary. We'll both have the economics of the yield and everything, and also the biomass generation. So that's about it from me.